Welcome to this episode of The Square. Today I'm joined with Nicole and Abby, two of our interiors experts. Would you agree?
Totally.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
To talk a little bit about their work and what drives them day to day. How you guys doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I feel good.
Nicole, finish this statement for me. I knew I wanted to be in interiors when?
Abby toured me through the office.
Perfect.
Aww.
Who toured you in the office?
Jill. Jill, first impression. I wanted to be interiors because I'm creative and I wanted to make money, so architecture.
Boom.
Yep.
Take it.
Yep.
And,
Me?
Yeah, only the tour couldn't have just been the only thing.
It was me.
No, it wasn't. I always thought I wanted to be an architect my whole life. And then I realized that the reason I wanted to be an architect was because I was obsessed with how humans interacted with the building. Seemed like we did that mostly on the inside.
That's so profound.
I know. So here I am.
Very cool.
What age was that at?
18.
I say that was 2 weeks ago.
I was 8 years old when I wanted to figure that out.
Kind of give me an idea of just like what y'all's current role is and kind of how that's developed, you know, as the firm has grown, and what is what does the day-to-day really look like for y'all?
You want me to go first?
Yes.
Yeah, you go.
So I started at Corgan on kind of the traditional path. So just learning everything I possibly could, working on projects kind of start to finish. And then a few years ago ended up on our design track, which is kind of new to Corgan, but really just looking to elevate design as a firm. And so I work on a team who primarily are in charge of making sure like the vision of the project is seen from the beginning to the end. And I help kind of curate deliverables. I'm really that one-on-one with the client, and just kind of looking at it through the design lens, because always, you know, it's really easy to get wrapped up in that project management lens, things that have to go out, deadlines that have to be made, but making sure that the quality of our design is top notch.
Same? Different?
Yeah, different.
She's managing everyone.
I do. I love managing. I tried design track and it was good. It wasn't for me because I am like an activator. And so I want to keep the integrity, but I love being on the job site, like just rolling around in the mud with the contractors.
Sometimes literally.
I mean, literally. And so that's what I did today, which is why I was on site twice. But yeah, I like seeing it in action. So I loved detailing in Revit and like drawing the designs, knowing the design, but then like putting it into action. And then, yeah, being on site and like stuff goes wrong every day and you just take it and it's like a puzzle and you got to solve it. And I really love it. So yeah.
In those like introductory client meetings, you know, what are those things that you're listening for that kind of make your ears perk up either for good or for bad? Like, what are those things? Abby, you can start, like, what are you listening for and kind of how are you reading in between the lines?
I was about to say, how fast can you get it done? That's what triggers me.
Project
like, well, okay, what in like the early client meetings or just like day-to-day client?
I would say when you have in those first impressions, because I think, you know, you've been known to have a lot of like repeat business, and obviously that starts from somewhere.
Yeah.
So, you know, before you have kind of a lifelong relationship with someone, like in those introductory meetings, I guess, what are you looking for and kind of how are you catching those pitfalls off the bat?
This is where it's fun to be a people person because I feel like it's like dating in like every sense. Like you come in, you got to feel like the other person out and you ask different questions, which like visioning is great for that because you said, you know, what are some like words that you hear? But an example is the client may say like, oh, we want like a contemporary design or traditional design. You're like, okay, I have a picture in my head, but then their picture is totally different. So you figure that out and you figure out like how you align on design, but then you align with personality. And I love that too because I love just like meeting people and like figuring them out. But yeah, you got to build trust and kind of just get to know them. And then once you start getting to know them, then when they say something, you're like, okay, I think you're saying it this way, but you mean something else. So it's a relationship. And then if you do a good job with the relationship, then they come back and ask for more, which I've been lucky enough to have repeat clients. So
yeah. And I think what's fun about that part is you get to know them.
Yeah.
But we're also behind the scenes over here trying to kind of come up with what is the aesthetic that aligns with this company.
Yeah.
And so we're over here doing all this research, looking at their website, trying to understand these like hidden things that they're not saying that's in between the lines, and then you get to meet them, and then you kind of understand why those things make sense, or things that don't seem to add up, and you figure it out, and then kind of see what the vision of the project's going to be.
Do you feel like with some companies in their brand that there's this like cognitive dissonance of like who they think they are versus who they actually are?
Often.
Yes.
Yeah. How do you handle that?
You kind of trick them into it.
No, I mean, I think it's a tricky balance of like the appropriate way of recognizing a brand, which we have our awesome branded environments team that manages that super well. But then also it's more about like culture and cultural representation. And I think that we get a sense of them when we meet them, and if we can get like go see them.
Yeah.
So it's really often more about representing their culture than necessarily their brand.
Is it something where because a lot of times it's like they want to be, where they're currently at, they're always looking for, it's like a growth mindset, right? So it's like, we want in 5, 10, 15 years, like this is who we want to be. Yeah. This is kind of who we are now. What is the challenge as far as that can be budget, that can be, like you said, time, like we're trying to get in 2 years, a year faster, right? Like what are some of those common challenges that you see with those, I guess, very like actively growing companies, and how do you mitigate some of those like major challenges?
How do we? Really, for me, it's a push and pull. Like if there's something that is super important to them that takes more time, like a design. So some clients, when we're in the design process, they want to meet like every week and they expect like a wow design presentation every week. That's when it's like, well, give us 3 weeks and then we'll be able to really like put a lot of love into this and bring it. If it's like plans or something that we can turn around quickly, I try to do that. So I try to give them what they want as quick as possible when I can. And then that way, when something does take more time, hopefully they trust me enough to be like, okay, yeah, like we believe you'll take care of this and tell us the amount of time that it takes. So, but that's also defending the design, I think, is like being able to push back respectfully and say like, give us a little bit more, give us some more space.
Yeah. So in that vein, like, talking about what a client wants versus like what they need. How do you do that?
Well, that's a big question.
Yeah, this is TheSquare. This is only big questions. The how do you do is just an introductory.
Yeah. No, I think it's just a balance of weighing what you're trying to achieve and what's possible and like what are your parameters. So like a lot of times what I'm thinking of as like kind of a hard thing to choose between is, sometimes there's like an outward presence, like what you want to appear to as with visitors or guests, or how you want the experience to be for your employees that walk in every day. And those might be two totally different things. And then you layer in what are the security constraints of the building, or what are the security constraints that you're imposing because you have certain boundaries that you want to create. So I think it's just kind of pulling all those pieces and then weighing what opportunity you want to take, and then presenting it to the client to make them make the choice.
Is there a time that you feel like you've been able to kind of pull maybe the kickoff didn't go super great, or that introduction didn't go super well, and things are still kind of moving forward, I guess. Are there those moments where you kind of learn to fall in love, or how does it work?
There have definitely been times where we've had to go back to the drawing board, if that's kind of what you're asking.
Yes.
I think we've gotten really good at like reading people at face value, like when we meet them. But there are definitely times where we like go in, we're like, here's what we think you are. And then whether it's the interview or like the first meeting, schematic design, and they're like, no, we are way over here. So I have had to like erase everything and start over quickly.
I think some of that too is also like how you present things. So we try really hard to like give people options, but people inherently are afraid to hurt your feelings. They're like, oh, these designers have come in, they've made this wonderful presentation, I don't want to interrupt anything. We're like, no, it's early. This is when we want your feedback. Give us changes. So sometimes I'll even subtly like open it up for criticism or feedback, and even like make comments myself so that it invites people to come in and say, you know what, I actually think that I would prefer it this way, or, I could see it coming from this other direction, or I don't know, something like that. Because then it becomes more collaborative, and when it's more collaborative, we ultimately get to where we all agree and they're invested in it.
That's true. But don't ever give them an option that you hate because they
100%.
will pick
Yes.
that option.
Yes.
They will every time.
We know
You
that
have to love all options.
Love all the options.
from the film world. That's like, we could go
Yes.
with this, and then they pick that one, and you're like,
Yes.
well, no one's heart's in it now. Yeah.
And if you do an option A and an option B, there will be an option C, and
Yeah.
it will probably be somewhere in
It's going to be A and B together
Yes.
into C.
We had James on not too long ago to talk about James Adams to talk about adaptive reuse. And one thing, he kind of gave us just kind of the ins and outs, and I think a lot of the problems and inherent challenges with that. I guess from y'all's perspective, what do you prefer? Do you prefer an adaptive reuse project, or do you like something ground up? I mean, what are the kind of positives and negatives of each?
I would say on the interiors team, a majority of our work, I guess you could consider adaptive reuse because we're often renovating existing office space. So our clients come in, they are leasing 3 floors in an existing building, and we have to tear everything out, put in new. And it's fun because you have some parameters that you have to work with. It's challenging. There's
puzzle.
definitely, yes, it's a puzzle. There's components you're trying to evaluate, like, oh, there's value in saving this and trying to leverage that. Like, do we design around this existing mechanical system? Things like that. But then there's also challenges with the ground up too. Just a lot of players. It's long. There's so many decisions to be made. There's no given. So that can also be challenging too.
I think I agree with that. I was going to say, like, when you have a nice plan that's like, that's it, this is your plan, and you have to, like, use it and rearrange, it's kind of nice. I kind of like that, those little bit of rules versus, like, if it's
Total open.
totally blank page, I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing anymore.
Yeah.
The architects are like, we added another room, and you're like, we added another 1,000 square feet, and you're like, my heart was kind of set on this.
I know. Well, it's nice when you have a plan and things are wrong. You're like, oh, these architects didn't do it right. So then you can complain.
Yeah.
No, I like reuse because of the puzzle and because, it kind of gives you something fun to play with. I'm kind of thinking of my most recent past 2 projects. One was kind of a phased reuse, and the other one was ground up. And the ground up's cool too because obviously the architects give us a plan. But that one is nice because, like, if you need to move a mullion over or, like, raise it or, like, move something, then you can call them up and be like, hey, move it over 5 feet, and this will make everything more efficient. So then hopefully you have, a more perfect building because everything's working together better. So that's the goal.
And kind of, springboard off of that, I guess, how are you being a good partner in working with the architects, the engineers, GCs? Like, what have you found is kind of the best practice as far as kind of like streamlining between all of the different parties?
Oh, gosh. Well, this is really Abby's world, but I do love CA2, which is a really funny contrast. I think early on, like, working with engineers, it's such a learning process because we're not engineers, but you learn so much in your first few years, like working in this industry, of just how certain things come together. So it's super collaborative. And I think just being very open and taking recommendations and knowing information that you learned from another project and putting it towards this one is really helpful during design. And then in construction, I think it's just having a really fluid, friendly relationship with the contractor. It's really fun. I honestly really love it too. Problem solving on the fly with somebody where you have totally different vantage points, I guess, in solving the problem. So we're looking at things totally differently from a different perspective than the contractor. And so it's just fun to work with them and solve problems on the fly.
Yeah.
I can hear you
Nodding.
Yeah. She's nodding so loud.
Yes. I'm active listening. Everything Nicole said is right. My tips, like, as far as people who are new to construction, is go to the OAC meetings and just write down everything that you hear, because I was the note taker for so many years, and I would write down words that were like Japanese to me. I had no idea what I was writing, but I was just writing words down. And there was one day where I was like, oh, I understand what, like, a VAV box was. I was like, I don't know what that is, but I'm writing it down. And, like, all of the, like, AV and technology language, I'm like, wow, I know what these are. Yeah. Don't ask me what a Cat 6 cable is, but, like, I know where it goes. I know how it works, kind of. But anyway, so I would say, like, take notes. This is my tip to everybody listening. Take notes until finally one day you're going to know, like, what you're talking about. And then now I can walk into a room with confidence because I know what everybody's talking about and can probably help solve problems. And then as far as the GC, I definitely agree with that too, because like they're going to mess up, but also our drawings are going to be wrong a lot of times. And so it's nice to come to the table with kind of a humble spirit to say like, hey, if something's wrong, like the GC is going to ask for favors and we can also ask for favors. So then by the time you bring it to the client, things are solved. And so everybody's kind of on the same page because you don't want to be pointing fingers in front of the client. Right. That's a bad look. Yeah.
There's been a phrase that's been thrown around here quite often, and I want to ask you what it means. You haven't heard this. What is ceiling acne?
Ceiling acne is all the crap that goes in the ceiling that you don't want to be there. So it's like fire alarms, strobes, freaking wireless boxes, WAPs, what else? It's all technology. Technology
Acoustic
comes
panels
in.
too? Or?
No, not acoustic.
Sensors.
It's like all the little bitty dot things. So like all the circle devices that go in a ceiling that like you're like not there. And that's also something that I've mastered over the years is if I have a specialty ceiling, I like tell the contractor every week, I was like, don't install anything in this ceiling because they will as soon as you turn your back.
From a design perspective, you're especially in those, introductory sketches and walkthroughs, and, none of that is there. How do you kind of manage the expectation of like, this is what it could look like, but it's not going to look like this, be amazed and don't fall in love too quickly. Yeah. Like, how do you handle that?
I mean, it doesn't typically come up unless you've got somebody really savvy on a project who's been through it before, like a third-party project manager who's going to ask all the tough questions. But it's on us to kind of know what we're designing and like don't install a stretch fabric ceiling where you're gonna have to have a fire strobe in the center of it and then they're basically stretching fabric and then putting something in. It's so bad.
Yep.
So we do have to check ourselves often to make sure that we're not just delivering renderings that are super unrealistic. But it's honestly mostly just something you have to handle and like be proactive about in CA. Like she's saying, you gotta just get in there, make sure that you're getting drawings that we then review and make sure that we are okay with everything.
First step is tell mechanical engineer, MEP, and say like, this is the no-go zone and highlight the ceilings and then they will draw around it. And then you got to tell the technology guys, and then you got to tell your GC, and then you just got to break some kneecaps until the ceiling gets done.
Hold fast, hold firm.
Literally.
Honestly, it's funny. You probably wouldn't think that like a super minimalist design would be harder to pull off, but something like more maximalist with lots of reveals and lots of intricacies is actually easier for us to hide stuff in because we can integrate an access panel. We can do all kinds of things. You'd never know. But when you see something super smooth, super clean, you got to just appreciate
where do I
it.
go?
Like, wow. That's why you go into a museum
Paint
and
it white
all the
or
interior
black and
designers
pray.
are just like, wow, there's no access panels.
Literally. St. Monica's Catholic Church, if anybody goes there.
I go there.
Okay, giant, next time you go, it's a giant ceiling. It's circular, it's huge. There is not a thing in the ceiling.
You're right.
Only the lights.
Yeah.
There's 2 projectors that come down. That's it. There's nothing.
I'd be looking up at that ceiling.
Look at it.
A
There
lot.
is only can lights, and I don't know how they did it.
Interesting.
It's amazing. Where are the sprinklers? I can't see any sprinklers, at the very least. So who knows?
There's several Catholic churches that they have a fire suppression system that drives my father-in-law absolutely crazy.
Was
Big fan
in
of
the way.
It's just right up on the ceiling.
Just right
It's
next to the altar. Jesus, fire.
Exactly. It's like, I feel like that could have been put, and that's probably just a PM that didn't hold fast. They're just like, whatever's good. But
Man. Yeah, no, that's taken a lot of years of training too.
what, as far as like materials, I guess, what's the most important criteria in your opinion?
My answer is not cute, but lead time and cost.
Budget.
Yep.
I mean, you can't propose something you can't afford. I mean, that's true for if you're renovating your house. So I think being realistic first and foremost, and then you get to be picky about other things that it.
Do you have an example?
I mean, if we're just going to talk about tile, there's a million tile options out there, right?
We can make this an all tile episode if we want.
Oh my gosh, the reps will be so excited.
We'll just name drop the whole time.
Yeah. No, but I mean, you kind of start with, is this project fast tracked? Like Abby mentioned. If it is, then you're picking within a certain amount of parameters because it's got to come on site at a certain point.
Right.
It's got to meet meet the timeline. And then obviously budget. So it's got to meet the budget. So you're not going to choose a marble flooring for a project that can't afford that. So you're probably picking something porcelain or ceramic. And then from there, you just get to make the fun choice of aesthetics and like, what is it used for? Does it need to be non-stick or non-skid? Is it used in a shower? Then there's different requirements. It needs to be tiny for certain reasons and to slope. So I think you just kind of start to bring it in.
I kind of like the challenge of, speaking of tile again, is like subway tile. Like, how can we make subway tile cool?
Yeah.
Because there's a million different patterns you can do and colors, and they're cheap, and you just make it look expensive. It's also nice when you're designing on like a budget or something with materials is there's usually like key areas that they want to spend more money on, and then
The less public,
You know,
maybe the more
like-
niche,
Functional,
So people
the
want
functional
support areas.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah,
we
they-
would love all of our areas equally.
Totally. But then you can go to the client and be like, look, we're being very budget friendly here and like still making it look beautiful, and then over here we can spend a few more dollars. So it's also, again, another puzzle. Lots of problem solving.
Nicole mentioned it, but as far as, fast track, I guess, from your perspective, I guess, what are those things that how do you kind of build your toolkit to meet that deadline to give yourself kind of the most successful chance of completing it?
How to fast track.
Yeah. How to fast track 101 with Abby.
Well, I can start.
go.
I would
Yeah.
say the beginning of it is really just setting ourselves up for success in the beginning. When we know going in that this is a fast track project, we often tell people to get their ducks in a row, which is kind of nice. Like, we can't make decisions for you. You have to make decisions. So a lot of times it's giving them here's a cheat sheet. We need to know who is the ultimate decision maker, or who can be in the room and we can have an effective meeting. If they're not there, we're going to need to move the meeting because otherwise things just drag out forever.
There's no point.
So I think that's like a good kickoff. But keep
Yeah,
going.
kind of hold their feet to the fire. If somebody makes a decision, you got to say like, okay, take good meeting minutes. Write that down. You just also, what I find internally is like really pep talking the team and like really making sure that our players are not getting like burnt out by just constantly pumping out quick work. And that's where, again, you kind of have to like help set boundaries with clients and say like, listen, like here's the timeline that we can produce, but still say yes, like, I don't know, there's give and take, but making sure that our team is healthy internally is also how you can like get through a project quick.
For sure. And I think having like really effective collaboration is good because then you get all the players in the room at the same time internally. So like we've got that expert PM who's got years of knowledge helping inform the decisions that the intern is making because they don't know. And so it just helps keep us from going in like endless loops of decision making and revisions and things like that. So as collaborative as we can be, I think the faster we move.
Yeah, that's true.
Getting, let's say, 6 months post move-in, how are you all defining success with this space, and ultimately kind of what does that lead to?
Can I go first for this one? Okay, I'm like personally so proud of this project that I just finished. We finished it about a year ago, and I'm going to say it's a confidential client just in case they don't want to be shouted out. They love the space. It was like fighting tooth and nail through the entire design, and everything was questioned and everything, we had to fight for everything, but the space ended up beautifully. And every time I go, because they're a repeat client, so we held on, every time I go, they have like hosted other clients, hosted parties, had people in the space. Other clients now are copying their space because they loved it so much. Like, they absolutely love it, and I am just so proud because, oh my gosh, like to see that they are using it and loving it and like showing it off. I've never had that before, and I'm like I've been proud of spaces, but I never really get to hear it. But now I'm like seeing them
Have pride.
love it, yes, and I'm like, oh wow, this is the best feeling in the world.
Yeah. I will say I had a similar situation on a project like a year ago. It was PMG, if you've seen that project. I think it was really interesting because it was fun to just see it in action. We designed this really interesting reception / coffee bar / all hands space. It was very dynamic. And I remember walking in one day after they had moved in and the music was on, like the AV was integrated. the space was buzzing. People were using it how we intended. Like the workplace strategy was working, all the things. And just seeing it be functionally so perfect was very rewarding. And even down to like going into a conference room and like it's so intuitive and how to do all the complex lighting controls. There's just something very satisfying at the end of the day when you leave and you're like, wow, it all came together.
We did it. Yeah.
Are you guys using, I guess, through the process to kind of wind things back, are you guys like what technology what are those tools? You talked about visioning a little bit. I guess what are some things that we're doing that really help hold the client's hand, kind of really be an advocate for them, through that process?
Well, we start with visioning, like Abby mentioned, and that's honestly a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? It's less digital. It's fun. We do exercises.
Stickers and pictures.
Yes.
I mean, it kind of is.
It is.
Post-it notes.
It is.
Markers.
But it gets people talking.
Drawing. Yeah.
And you're not just
people
staring at a
loose.
screen.
Yeah.
So I think we do like exercises like this or that. Like she was mentioning, like, do you consider yourself a
love that this or
cheeseburger or a filet mignon? And how would you pick? What is your company?
I love
and
that.
I think it's just so much fun. So there's tools like that. But then, we do work in BIM software. So Revit, so building information modeling, I think is what it is called.
That's it.
IT can
Points.
confirm.
Wow.
5 points. Yep.
But it's very helpful because we're able to like set everything up. It's thoughtful. It's not just CAD. It's not 2D. It's 3D. So we're drawing things. It's populating the objects in 3 dimensions. So then we can very quickly just start to study massing, which is exciting. And I think that's really validating when you go from a test fit or a space plan. And clients don't look at them all the time. So for them to see that, sometimes I think they understand. But then when we move into like schematic design and we're like, okay, let's start to see what this mass looks like. And you're like, ooh, yeah, when you told me to make that reception area smaller, it got really small really fast. And so you can start to assess volume. And I think that's really cool. And then, it can do everything. It goes into DD. We can add all the materials, render things really beautifully. And then it's like populating schedules for CDs. And I think it's really cool.
I just learned Procreate this
that's
week.
fun.
Yeah, for sketching. Do you know that program? Okay, yeah, great. It's not new.
Not intimately.
It's
no,
not new,
but
it's new to me. And we're proud of it. Yeah, I learned Procreate, and so we had a client who wants to like redo their lobby, and it's existing. So I took a bunch of photos, put it in the iPad, sketched on Procreate, presented it yesterday, and they're like, wow, this is amazing. And so that was fun. But yeah, different, like, I love being creative with sketches. Using like Enscape, Revit, Procreate now, or just like straight up paper. Remember paper? I like having fun with technology when we sketch because there's a lot of cool ways that you can do like schematic renderings. Aviation does a great job.
In the Media Lab, we're talking film all day, every day, and there's numerous arguments about which films are good, which are bad. People's opinions and aesthetics change day to day. And
gotta be
on the
them.
interiors team, like, what is the main argument?
There's got to be arguments.
I don't know. I don't see us like criticizing a lot of work. Maybe we need to work
are
on
you
that.
kidding? We have so many people with strong opinions on our team.
We do, but we don't just sit around and like hash it out.
That's also not true.
Okay, I don't know where I've been.
I need to think about it. There's got to be stuff. Like, there's got to be those triggers, but I just can't think of them.
I know one
You're
thing
working,
that
I
lights
think.
people up is when base doesn't come together.
Okay.
Like you've got a 4-inch rubber base, you've got a 6-inch terrazzo base. There are people who are going to lose their minds.
Lose their minds.
The project has failed.
What's the solution there? Is it just a tiny little ramp, or what's the?
Honestly, there's no.
There is no solution. You have to fix it in design before it escalates and becomes a problem. So we really like think through everything so that those things don't happen. What else?
I'm gonna keep thinking about it.
Think about it. Think about it and interrupt when you.
I might interrupt
when you
later,
jump
yeah.
in. Was there like a big like? Did you ever have like a big aha moment on a project where like everything finally clicked? You kind of talked about like taking those notes and kind of getting that moment where you're like, I know this kind of thing, and kind of be able to swing what you know. Do you, Nicole, anything like that?
Similar to Abby, I had an interesting kind of introductory experience at Corgan. My first project was actually the Corgan expansion, which was fun, but a renovation in place. And then my second project was a ground up project, and it was 4 years long, at least.
What project was it?
Schwab.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What a blast.
And so I started as like the youngest person on the team. I was an intern. And then by the time it was over, it was like me and the project manager just kind of like wrapping everything up. And so there was definitely a moment along the way because you come out of school, you don't know construction. I didn't. And so there was just an aha moment where it's like, I understand all the details that I drew.
Yeah.
I can walk in and tell the contractor, oh, I think that the way that you framed that is actually going to conflict with the detail and our intent because we're trying to do this. And that was just a very interesting moment, probably 2 or 3 years into my career, really just understanding what I was drawing and how it was going to turn out in the field.
I don't remember when my aha moments were, but just being able to lead like a door meeting with the security team and the technology team, or being able to lead a technology meeting or like a furniture meeting, things that are very like detailed, and there's a lot of players and people are going to ask you really complicated questions. So being able to lead those meetings is like really a point of pride for me. The other thing that kind of leads to aha moments is when you're teaching like the next people and like they ask questions that you're like, oh yeah, I do know how to do that. Like, yeah, this is how. So lots of aha moments. Honestly, still having aha moments.
Oh, yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about just kind of where the industry is and kind of what are those trends that you are kind of aligning with and kind of which ones are you still kind of like hesitant to kind of follow?
I think I'm ready for maximalism. I'm wrapping up a project right now, and it is black and white and gray. And I'm like, this is beautiful, and it's going to age probably great because there's nothing offensive in it. But I'm like, man, I would love to just like be really obnoxious with color. I think I'm ready to just be, maximalist.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think my favorite thing that's kind of influencing our world right now is this hospitality touch to everything that we do. Everybody's got a coffee bar. Everybody's got, these interesting pieces. It just makes for way more fun design because we're designing things that we don't typically get to do, like a gym or a coffee bar, and just all the little intricate pieces of that and making it feel finished and thought through is really fun.
I like that. It's like higher end.
Yes.
Anything you guys are hesitant to adopt at the moment? Is it just minimalism or?
I would say I'm not like a huge fan. I don't know if I would say it's a trend, but just as we move towards the future, everybody wants a bigger screen and then a bigger screen and then a bigger screen. And I'm not about it. I really like the more analog approach, the more human approach, tactile. How does it feel? I don't love putting a screen everywhere. If it's super immersive and it's really cool, then yes. But that would be my bigger pet peeve.
What's our immersive experience team? We'll have to get right on that.
I feel like AI still overwhelms me. I don't know if that's like a hot take or not, but AI, like how they can do 1 million floor plans for you and like test fits, and they can do all these designs and stuff. I just feel overwhelmed by it. But I feel like it'll probably start integrating just like pretty seamlessly. I mean, we're already kind of using it, so.
Which I think it just has to go with like the information that you're, like at a certain point it's just pixels on a screen. It's like, is this the right place for it? Is that but to have that kind of thought where it's like, yeah, technically, I mean, it's the same way that they all work with those language learning models where it's like you fed it a bunch of information, so like technically it's English, but like you read it and it's like no one's using em dashes like that.
Yeah.
No human has ever used this many em dashes.
Yeah.
In the same way, like it's a carryover with like those floor plans where like I've seen some of them and it's like, okay, yes, technically this this is an office and this has a lobby and this has the bathroom, but it's like in practicality, like why would you put it there and that kind of thing. So I feel like it is a balance, but yeah, I agree with you there.
I'm like hesitant, maybe scared, maybe I'm intimidated.
I think you're only scared because you don't give yourself enough credit.
Oh.
Like I think I don't think you're not giving yourself you have the resources to handle any problem.
I probably just need to do it.
Doing it
someday I'll just do it and I'll be like, oh, that's fine.
And then you'll be like, oh, it still doesn't really. I mean, Anna,
I should have just drawn it myself.
this would have been way faster. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nicole, for you, what is your favorite project you're working on right now?
My favorite one is Park Place, which is really just a repositioning project, meaning that we're working with a real estate group who's looking to improve their properties. So they have some old properties that are considered Class B, maybe, I guess, but they really want to be in Class A, Class AA, which just means they're top tier. They've got all the amenities. They want to be marketable and really attract top tenants. And so it's a really small building. The floor plans are small. They're attracting family businesses. Nice. Like it's really cool. Yeah. And so I'm getting to do a lot of the hospitality design because what they're looking to do is create this awesome reception experience. So we got to design this really beautiful, very high-end coffee bar, a library lounge, and then we actually did like some residentially inspired restrooms and locker rooms as part of their amenity package. So that was just really fun. It was a nice change of pace from just your useful open office. So
yeah, love
refreshing
that.
change.
Is yours your favorite, your super secret client you can't talk about?
Yeah, it's a super secret one. It's not that secret, but I just don't know. Yeah, it's the confidential client.
National technology company. Well, I don't know.
Totally. They're all everybody's technology.
Yeah, whenever we have to Greek something out, it's always coming to national technology client.
They'll tell you it's technology. Yeah, no, that one's fun because it was one of those things where I didn't think I would be as proud of it as I am, but I think being able to go back and like I'm at their office all the time because we have, continuing projects, and just seeing them in the space is awesome. And then Wells Fargo is about to finish, and that one is really gorgeous. Like it is huge and the scale of it is wild. And that's one that I walked this morning, and you just like walk around and you're like, wow, we did it. Like we're at the end. We're going to take photos hopefully in the next month. And so those should be really cool.
Abby, Nicole, thank you guys so much for coming on the podcast and just giving us a little bit more insight into y'all's day-to-day and kind of what drives you. Any final thoughts?
This was fun.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Good. This was great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Liked it.
Awesome. Thanks, guys, for watching The Square. We'll see you next time.
Bye.